Ladies and gentlemen, this is Art of MMA. I'm your host, Mike Ginn. Welcome back to a brand new episode. Of course, the topic on everybody's lips is Dustin Poirier and Conor McGregor, and we'll talk about that most definitely. We're going to talk about UFC Fight Island 8, Michael Chiesa and Neil Magny and that whole card. And then, of course, Brandon's going to take a quick look at Glory 77, but you're going to have to wait till the end to check that out. So make sure you stay tuned. Of course, before we get to anything, Brandon, tell them what to do.
Like and subscribe, baby. You know what it is.
Absolutely. That voice is Brandon, the mechanic Catino, professional kickboxer, Glory vet. Brandon, how you doing, man?
Doing well, man. Doing well. Good to be with you on a Tuesday.
And we also got a special guest today. I'm talking about former UFC fighter, former Bellator fighter, one of the help creators of Brave. I'm talking about Alex Soto. Alex, how you doing, man?
Hey, doing great, Mike. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, man. I'm hoping to get you on more often. I love the colorful commentary we have going back and forth on social media when we start talking about certain fights. This might be the first. This might be the first time I have to get to tell you that you were wrong about Brandon Moreno, but he did bring the fight.
Hey, he brought it to him, man. Everybody thought he was gonna go in out, but he brought it, man. It's the first time I've been wrong.
The fight. First time. I haven't been right all the time. Brandon hasn't been all right all the time. Funny enough, we started tracking picks now, so no picks this week because there isn't an event until next week with the Overeem Volkov fight on February 6th. But funny enough, despite last week's picks being all over the map with me and Brandon being opposite on almost everything, we're still tied at 5-4. So on to next week, and we'll see if we can break that tie. But let's get into some news. You guys ready?
Yep.
Start off with a couple fight announcements. I've been debating whether I even wanted to cover this. It's kind of hilarious almost. It's official. April 17th, Jake Paul, Ben Askren, another Triller fights. I personally don't think this fight is going to draw the way the last one did because the last one was headlined by Mike Tyson. This time it's headlined Jake Paul. I don't see it selling at all. Maybe a bunch of illegal streams, but I don't know. Are you guys even remotely interested? I'm kind of like the humorous thing is I want to see Ben Askren box. That's what I want to see, but nope. Crickets.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I gotta say, I'm working on a project right now. I probably didn't tell you this earlier, Mike, but I've been working with Pancrase and Pancrase hybrid wrestling and stuff.
Yeah.
And we got something that works very similar. So I got my eye on this fight because I think it's really entertaining. I think everybody hates that guy. What's it, Jake Paul?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, everybody hates that guy. And then Ben Askren got silenced against
He got baptized.
Yeah, he got baptized. So I don't know. It's just I think it's interesting. I got my eyes on it because on a business perspective, I just think it's very interesting to see how well they do. I'm curious to see if they do sell. But I don't know. We'll see.
Brandon, you think Jake Paul and Ben Askren can carry a pay-per-view no matter who's on the undercard?
Yeah, to be honest with you, I think Jake Paul can. Like Jake Paul has a big time following. Like him and his brother, they do well, man. Like when they had fought KSI, they had I think over 1 million buys. So I think Jake Paul just by himself could carry this thing. But I think having Ben Askren, like either way, both people aren't liked right now. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, people don't like Ben Askren. They probably do want to see him get knocked out again. But then again, people might not like Jake Paul, so they want to see if Ben Askren can knock him out.
I would say the only difference between the Jake Paul, Logan Paul, like celebrity boxing fights that they did was that it was carried on YouTube pay-per-view. This Triller thing is on traditional pay-per-view, and obviously the Triller app pay-per-view system, which barely held up during the Mike Tyson thing, but that's a Mike Tyson thing, and you know how many people were tuning in to watch that. I don't think that there's a problem with an audience. I think he has an audience. But I think when you start trying to charge $39.99, $49, $59, $69 for traditional pay-per-view fight prices for celebrity boxing, basically, that's where I think people are going to be like, let's see what I can find on the internet without saying such words. Don't want Dana coming after me next. But but I don't see people buying it. I think people will talk about it. I definitely think people will talk about it. And I'm hoping Ben Askren doesn't embarrass an entire industry. He better start training with Anthony Pettis and some of those other dudes and working on his hands real quick.
Is it gonna be just purely boxing?
8 rounds boxing.
Oof, man, yeah. And then Jake Paul did knock out that basketball player, right?
Yeah, Nate Robinson.
Yeah, Nate Robinson. Yeah,
but Nate Robinson trained for like 4 weeks and then jumped into a ring. Ben Askren's been training his whole life. I mean, it might.
What about Jake Paul?
Jake Paul's been training for,
I think 2 years.
I was going to say 2, but I guess now it's probably been 3. Pure boxing, like he trains. He trains with some of the best guys in LA. People joke about it because he's a YouTube star, and I do too. But that's his gimmick. That's his shtick. People want to hate him. I'm hoping half the people haven't tuned out of this episode because we're talking about him. That's why I include the table of contents right on the bottom. You guys can skip ahead to where we're talking about Fight Island 8. But yeah, I'll end it with this. I think it's interesting. I just don't think people will buy it, at least unless they have a couple other fights that are people interested in. In real MMA news, Darren Till just got signed to fight Marvin Vettori on April 10th. I don't really know what this does for Vettori because he was kind of sitting there waiting with the whole Adesanya thing, being as that was the last guy Adesanya even had a fight, like a battle with, a split decision loss. I guess Vettori doesn't want to be dormant and he wants to fight. Darren Till's a risky fight, but I don't think Darren Till's is dangerous at 170 personally. And speaking of which, in that same 185. Speaking of which, in the same category, there's also rumored now, and it's almost finalized for April 17th, Robert Whittaker versus Paulo Costa. I'm actually really interested in that fight because I want to see what Costa's really made of. Do either of those fights interest you guys?
To me personally, I'm kind of with you on the Vettori thing. I really think it should be the other way around. I think it should be Whittaker versus Vettori, and Till should get Costa because Till and Costa are both coming off L's, while Vettori and Whittaker are coming off W's.
That would make great sense.
They should be the ones. Yeah,
that would make sense. But
yeah, so to me, those should be the fights that should be happening. But either way, man, I mean, I'm always down to watch Bobby Knuckles, scrap. I like him. He's a good dude. He's a good martial artist. So I'm always down to watch him fight. And also too, I'm interested to see if Vettori can get his rematch with Adesanya.
Yeah, and then we also have to see what happens with Adesanya and Blachowicz. Right now, Adesanya is holding up the whole division because he's flirting with 205, but the person that he was supposed to be flirting with isn't even there. Alex, did any of those fights kind of strike your interest, or do you kind of agree with Brandon?
Yeah, I'm 100% there with Brandon. I think I call it the same thing. I think you took the words out of my mouth, man. It'll be an interesting fight though, regardless. Either one of those two fights are going to be pretty sick to watch, man. I'm stoked about it.
Yeah, honestly, I think they're both good fights.
Yeah.
I just think they should be switched. I kind of agree. I think I would rather see Darren Till versus Paulo Costa and Whittaker versus Vettori in a contenders fight.
And I agree. I think Till at 185 is not as dangerous. I think he's going to have a big trouble dealing with those guys at that weight, man.
It's a funny story about Darren Till too. There was a European journalism student over in a university in England, and he reached out to me and he wanted to do a story on Darren Till moving up in weight. And the funny thing was, I said the only fight that ever made sense for him was Robert Whittaker, and of course Whittaker then smoked him. But he chopped up he chopped up the way I said stuff to try to make it look like I wasn't bashing Darren Till. And unfortunately, I wasn't very positive about Darren Till because he was coming off the loss to Gastelum. He was lost, he just wasn't very on a hot streak, I guess is the best way to put it. I wasn't really bashing Till. I just didn't think moving up in weight didn't make sense. I know he had trouble making 170, but he's not a strong 185 guy. And Vettori, for the better part of the last 2 or 3 fights, his striking has gotten so much better. And I think he's going to put Till to sleep. But I guess that's why they fight the fights, right, guys?
Yeah.
The last bit of news before we hop into some of the results, kind of a bit of a, I don't even know, tragic way to end the news. Unfortunately, BJ Penn was arrested this week, suspicion of a DUI. There's video online you can easily find if you Google it where he was being kind of resistant arrest. He was arrested technically on reckless driving charges. The blood toxicology results are still coming back. But still kind of a tragic story just to see the way BJ Penn has fell off the last few years. He's getting in bar fights. He's getting in scraps here and there. Obviously, his last few UFC fights didn't go his way, not even close. Though I will say, funny enough, he was actually kind of more competitive his last fight than he'd been in the previous few. But I don't know, just a sad way to kind of end the news today, because you always root for a guy like that that's given so much to the sport that we all love and we've all, watched for years and years. I still remember the GSP fights. I still remember some of his earlier fights where he was like flipping between like 3 or 4 different weight divisions. BJ Penn's always left it in the cage. Obviously, the Frankie Edgar fights, people, will always remember those. So I think I just kind of send well wishes to BJ Penn, and hopefully, he kind of gets things together because, as you guys both know, Alex, you're recently, we say retired. You can get the itch any second, come back. Brandon's still kind of like fighting a little bit here and there. Yeah. But, as guys in your 30s, the fight window is only so long. If you're really, really good, you got a Randy Couture and you're fighting until you're about 45, 46.
Yep.
But then you still have the next 40 years of your life to live and do something different, 50 years, 60 years if you're lucky, right? So,
right.
Hopefully the next chapter in BJ Penn's life turns into a better story than kind of what he's doing now. Plus, he makes a ton of money on bjpenn.com. So,
yeah, I was gonna say, he's very successful outside the cage as well with his business with bjpenn.com and all his gyms and stuff. So he's crushing it.
Gyms, I think he owns a few restaurants. He has a bunch of businesses in Hawaii.
Yeah, so he's an excellent entrepreneur. He's crushing it outside, man. I think it's unfortunate you get caught up with with the law, man. And once you get in the tunnel, I don't know if you guys ever been arrested, but once you're in there, it's hard to get out, man. You're in that cycle, and you just keep getting it, So
yeah, they start looking for you.
I think he'll be all right.
All right, guys, you ready to talk about some fights?
Yes, sir.
UFC Fight Island was last Wednesday, as Brandon so eloquently put it. Breakfast and fights. I think you texted me something like maybe a cup of coffee and a fight or something like that. Either way, it was a pretty cool thing. I think the conspiracy theorists think that maybe he was putting it up against the inauguration due to his political ties. But regardless of the reasons Dana did the early fight, it actually ended up being one of those cards. We talked about this last week, Brandon. Sometimes those cards you don't expect anything from end up being pretty damn kick-ass. And there were 3 or 4 fights on the undercard, not even the main card, that actually I was sitting there texting you. I was like, yo, look at this Mike Davis fight. Look at this. So that card definitely stole the show. I'll go over a couple of the results. Definitely Khabib's little cousin, Nurmagomedov, he had the submission rear naked choke in the second round. We talked about Mike Davis versus 2-division champ Mason Jones. They were hyping up Mason Jones coming over from Cage Warriors, kind of repeating the whole Conor McGregor thing. Mike Davis outpointed him 29-28. That fight was such a tale of two cities because Mason Jones kept coming forward, which was fantastic. He made it an exciting fight. But Mike Davis was so more technical than him. And, Mike Davis trains with some killers. So, like, those blows that he was throwing were all, like, could have put him into sleep. And then at the end of the fight, you were wondering who was going to win because was it cage control or was it being technical? Kind of like that whole Nick Diaz, Carlos Condit conversation we always have. And then, of course, the decision went to Davis. I told you during the fight, too, if Davis threw a third punch, then that fight would have been over in the first round. As a striker more than anybody. 1-2, and if you're an opponent, all right, the second punch went, all right, now I can attack you. Because that's what he would do. He would do 1-2, back up, 1-2, back up. And he could have took his head off if he just thrown a third punch. So that fight also caused me interest. Figueiredo beat Rivera. Dalcha beat Perez. I'm going to steal Brandon's technique of just saying the first name on that one. Murati versus Ashtavev was a pretty interesting fight. A couple of people gave Ashtavev a round, but I don't know that one. The fight we talked about last week, Ricky Simon, looked every bit of the part. I told you that kid had so much potential. He had that one hiccup of a loss, but, man, he looks so good this week. Akhmedov versus Breeze. Go ahead, Alex. What?
No, I was gonna say Ricky Simon. We share the cage once together, so I know that kid very well, and intimately. That he's a tough dude, man.
He has so much potential.
Yeah,
just unlimited. Seriously. And he's one of those guys. He can go anywhere on the ground, on his feet, and he's only getting better. We'll break down a couple of those fights real quick. I just want to go over some of these results. Murphy beat Silva. DeAndre versus decision. One fight that Brandon talked about last week. The Tyson Nam Matt Schnell didn't go Brandon's way. He went with Nam, but split decision went the other way. I honestly thought it could have gone either way when it got to the cards. I had Chanel winning, but I could have seen it either way personally. Arroyo beat Modafferi. Beat her bad too. I hate to see Roxanne go out like that, but she definitely took a beating in that one. Villanueva beat Moreira, and of course Alves beat Lazez and Chisse over Magny. We'll talk about a couple of the main card fights as well, but guys, which fight kind of stood out to you as far as really like on the undercard that really stood out to you? Alex, I'll start with you.
Well, I was gonna say that Nurmagomedov dude was freaking gnarly as hell, man. He was impressive.
I feel like he kept getting put off too. I think they were trying to put him on a few different cards, and they got him cleared.
Was it because he had COVID or something, or there was some COVID stuff, or?
So I feel like between him and Khabib's other guy that was supposed to be on the Khabib card back when he fought Gaethje, that was like, then they got pushed off. One was because of COVID, other was because of visa issues. And then I think for a couple reasons they were just trying to line it up, and the fight just never, or one person would pull out, or you know how the fight business is. But they finally got him on a card, and he looked really good.
Man, that guy was impressive, man. From what I can remember, that was, Wednesday seems like 3 weeks ago now.
Right, especially after this week, especially after Saturday, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, man, but I was really impressed with that guy.
Brandon, what fight kind of stood out to you?
I mean, you kind of really really talk about it, but of course, the Mike Davis fight I was really into, but also too the Ricky Simone fight as well.
You know what's funny about that Mike Davis fight is that even though the Figueiredo fight right after it was really good, I was kind of like that afterglow of the Mike Davis fight. I was like half of paying attention to the Figueiredo fight because I was so like wild by the fight before that I started doing different stuff. I started watching. So of course, it was inauguration day here in America. I started watching a bunch of different stuff. And in the process, I kind of like tuned out a lot of that Figueiredo fight. And every time I would turn up, they'd be like in a like middle of the cage going toe to toe.
Yeah.
So that was another fight that people kind of slept on. We just always talk about it. These cards that you like, the name value was obviously Mike Chiesa versus Neil Magny. You could have named maybe Warley Alves. Obviously, Nurmagomedov has the family name. Mm-hmm. Matt Schnell and Tyson Nam got legendary names because they've been around for so long. But you couldn't have named half the people on this card if you're a casual fight fan.
Yeah.
But this card actually delivered, as far as fight per fight, every fight, more than the UFC 257 card did. And the UFC 257 card was actually pretty damn good too. But if you're a real fight fan and you're a real fight expert, that card on Wednesday, if you go back, especially if you go back and watch it now, like I watched a replay on ESPN Plus, I guess maybe like between Thursday and Friday, I kind of watched a little bit back and forth when I was having some downtime. That was a damn good card. So let's talk about the co-main event though. And then we'll get on to obviously what everybody's here for is Conor McGregor, Dustin Poirier, UFC 257. You called it. You said Warley Alves would beat Lazes. I didn't really see it going that quickly, Brandon. Tell me about that fight.
Man, like I told you, I just had a feeling, man, that like I said, man, he's a veteran. He was an Ultimate Fighter. I think Brazil winner. I was saying, I think he just had the experience, and I think he played it as where I want to say that it was a big time fight for him. And he just went out and that's.
I would argue it was a big time fight because he's never really lived up to the potential until now.
Yeah. So no. That's what I'm saying. That's what I think that was his mindset. That was a big time fight. Like I think it was a win or lose fight. Like if he lost, he was going to be out of the UFC. So I think he went in there knowing that he had to get the job done. And like I said, he went out there, got that clinch, throwing some knees. He was doing work.
Yeah, I don't think Lazez was ever really in that fight. What do you think, Alex?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's he looked fantastic on that one, and he really needed that win, and he pulled it off. And when you're put on there like that in that co-main event status, and you're under a lot of pressure, man, that was impressive to watch, and he looked great, man. He really did.
No, I thought, like I said, I picked Lazez last week. I was wrong. I 100% wrong. Like Worley came out and he looked the part that he should have looked the last 3 or 4 fights, and he just, he sometimes he does this. Sometimes he does look this good, and other times you're just like, you think he's a mid-carder. You don't even think he's possibly ever a main event. But then he does this again, and then you get filled with hope. So I hope he follows it up. I hope he keeps going because he has all the potential. He's just like Ricky Simon we were talking about earlier. He's one of those guys. Like, you have a hiccup, does it keep you down or do you get back up? I definitely think he's got some fights lined up for him coming up after this performance. The main event, I'm heartbroken over, and it's not because I dislike Chiesa. I do, but he's just so likable all the time. But Neil Magny is just such a fan favorite. We were talking last week about, he's kind of come back the last few fights. He's definitely, he was almost on that Masvidal like streak where he came back after some time off and he just started finishing guys and he started getting his win streak back up. And then Chiesa just beat him in every part of the game on Wednesday. Alex, what'd you think of that fight?
Chiesa did great, man. He showed a lot of really good stand-up, great work, great movement throughout the entire process, and then he just got the job done, man. It's honestly, it's hard to me to remember that fight because it was on Wednesday, and it's like I was kind of distracted as well too from all the political nonsense that was going on in the U.S. But man, yeah, he looked good, man. From the little highlights that I saw, he looked great, man.
I will say that's the great thing about UFC Fight Pass. The only cards you really have to pay for are the big UFC pay-per-views, but you get so many every week. So even if you don't catch it live, you can go back and catch almost all of these fights. What do you think, Brandon? What's next for Chiesa?
It's definitely somebody in the top 5. He called out Kobe Covington, so that's who he wants. Now I don't know if
everybody wants Covington. Covington's like McGregor at this point. It's the unicorn that you can make the most money off of.
Yeah, but the fight played out how I thought it could play out. Because remember, when we were picking the fight, I had told you the only thing I'm worried about is if Neil Magny gets taken down, because Chiesa, man, he has good top pressure. He's a wrestler. He knows how to hold people down, and that's exactly what he did. He got Magny down, held him down. Magny really couldn't do anything. Stand up wise, that's why I thought Magny could keep the fight. But the thing was, he wasn't doing what he was doing before, where he was using his reach. He kind of seemed hesitant to really throw. And I think, and I want to say that's what Chiesa had. He took advantage of that, and that's when he got him up against the cage, and he just took him down.
What do you think about it? I would have said before the announcement of Tyron Woodley and Luque pretty much getting locked in. I think it's still not finalized, but I think it's pretty much where they're going. I would have said Luque would have been a good fight, but now what about somebody like Wonderboy is coming off an impressive win to end the year?
Yeah,
that's top 5.
Yeah, if he wants it, yeah, why not? You're trying to get close to the title, and if you beat Wonderboy, that'll definitely help you. But if he wants Covington, hey man, get Covington. I
think it's funny because, after the Thompson fight, Thompson called out Masvidal, right? Mm-hmm. And Chiesa is calling out Covington, but all signs are pointing to Masvidal versus Covington. So maybe they do need to fight each other because they both want the other guy. So I think that's definitely interesting. Alex, you got any final thoughts on that one?
No, I was gonna say, man, when it's all about making the Benjamins right now, man. Especially with COVID and not being able to fight as frequently as they can, and just kind of all the stresses of traveling across the world to go fight on Fight Island, and the difficulties on that, and then some fighters really get the energy. I know I was one of those guys that just, man, when the stadium is packed, man, you're just it just gives you that extra motivation and that amp when you're fighting, man. And I think we witnessed that with Conor's fight, and we'll get to that later. But it's just they're these guys trying to get paid, man. So I get it why they're trying to get Covington. I think that's the money fight, and when you're able to do that in your career, man, that's exactly what I'd be doing.
Yeah, I mean, I think the one problem I think with which is that, or Chiesa, I'm sorry, I've always said it the other way, is just that he's not very likable, and he doesn't sell tickets. He's a fantastic fighter. He wins after win after win, but you're not really paying to see him. He's just somebody that you kind of appreciate how good he is, but his personality doesn't really sell. He just comes off as unlikable. Maybe him and Covington would be a great fight because he might be actually the good guy for once. But we shall see. Ladies and gentlemen, I know you probably skipped forward after all that because I added the table of contents on the bottom. For those that haven't been paying attention, look down below. Where's the camera? Down below. You can scroll to wherever you want to see. We have all the really great contents listed below in the description, so you can just hop right over to wherever you want to go. Make sure you leave a comment. Tell us what you thought of UFC Fight Island. Was it a great fight? Was it not? Hey, leave a comment. Let us know. Brandon and I are usually in the comments responding. Alex is usually coming in there trying to start a fight. So make sure you pay attention to the comments. So, ladies and gentlemen, it is time to talk about UFC 257. Talking about Poirier versus McGregor. I'm talking about other fights that were popular. Michael Chandler made his debut against Dan Hooker. Obviously, Brandon was in love with the Joanne Calderwood fight. We'll talk about all that. A boy, Brad Tavares, stepped up big time. He made the big win. So we'll talk about all that. Let's get into it. I'm going to kind of do things a little bit backwards because everybody's been waiting for it. Let's start off Dustin Poirier versus Conor McGregor. I got a very strong opinion on this fight, but I'm going to go ahead and start with you guys. Brandon, what you think of the fight?
Hey, man, I loved it. I picked Poirier all the way, and he went out, did his thing, man. Beautiful strategy on throwing the calf kicks. He took away Conor's base, and then, hey, man, Conor wanted the box, and Dustin just went out there and just said that he was the better boxer. Got his combinations going, caught him, finished.
Alex?
I don't necessarily agree with that, actually. I think Conor McGregor was winning that fight up until that last second, until he got caught with a lazy stiff jab. I think Conor was playing a great role. He was in charge of it. He was hiding that injury. I mean, I don't think anybody, at least I didn't see that Conor looked in danger, or that he looked that he was in pain when he got hit in the leg, when those calf kicks. So he was hiding it very well, man. I looked at the replay and I was like, man, he talks about it in the post fight that he was, that really did hurt, but he's hiding it very well. And up until the last second, I had Conor McGregor whooping Cormier's ass. So I mean, so I think it was like a really good technical performance by Conor McGregor. He got taken down early, but then he put Dustin. He got right back up. And he was just dominating the fight, man. He just got caught, man. That's what it is.
Yeah. No, wait. I'm sorry, Mike. I just want to come back. No, in that fight, I did have Conor winning the first round. But the thing is, I think we all knew, or should I say, I think what Dustin's plan was to get him to the later rounds, because you usually watch Conor's fight, you kind of see that he kind of tires out, like in the third round, or you get to the fourth or fifth. So I think it was like we talked about, man. It's like a body shot. Leg kicks. You started early. That way it will pay off towards the later rounds. So yeah, I think Dustin kind of was, he's saying he lost the first round. Second round was a little bit closer, but maybe McGregor was winning that too. But then those leg kicks just paid off, and he caught him with the punch, and then like you said, he got caught.
So yeah, I mean, he got caught, but it was beautifully done. It was
sorry, Mike, man.
Host right here. Host. Gosh, guys. Look, now actually I agree with both of you, but I'm gonna take a different point of view on this one. And I'm gonna actually praise Poirier. Yes, McGregor was winning that fight. Yes, Poirier cut down his leg, and that's why he started trying to check and catch those leg kicks, if you noticed.
Yeah.
But here's where I'm gonna differ from most people's opinion. The leg had nothing to do with the fight, the results of the fight. The ring rust, which I guess in hindsight might have had something to do with why McGregor was where he was, instead of having certain cage awareness that you have when you're in there. I think what happened in that fight was 100% an advanced skill by Dustin Poirier of cage awareness, something you're just comfortable, you practice, you do it. I agree with Alex. McGregor was landing way more than Dustin was most of the fight. Dustin admitted in the post-fight that if McGregor had followed up with a couple of those shots, he would have finished him. Dustin was hurt. So that takes nothing away from the way McGregor fought. Yeah, maybe he had ring rust. Yeah, that leg injury. See, this is where I differ from you, Brandon. I think if it had gone 3, 4, 5 rounds, we could have talked about that calf. I think it's something that would have affected him later in the rounds when he couldn't move, especially taking, those minute breaks between the rounds. Eventually it would have stiffened up. He couldn't have been moved. But when the fight ended, that was purely something Dustin did. They were both parallel along the cage, right? And Dustin did something that I watched it back and back again. It's almost like a karate technique. You slide just slightly so the opponent slides the other way to match you, right? Well, what happened was Dustin's one of the best boxers in the UFC history. I mean, we can argue the whole Max Holloway thing, but that's irrelevant right now. Dustin had him lined up against the cage at distance because he turned and Conor turned. And when Conor turned, Conor got stuck against the cage, not in a clinch. It was at distance. And Dustin admitted himself, he just goes crazy sometimes. And he just started throwing fist after fist after fist. If you watch that replay, Conor ducked most of those punches. Maybe that jab did have him a little shook, and that's why he got put in that position. But he was ducking and bobbing and weaving most of those punches. He tried to throw a couple back, but Poirier was just pure volume at that point, just unloading. And when you punch like Poirier punches, how many people have Poirier put to sleep? Like when you punch like he punches, as accurate as he punches, eventually one of those shots was going to put him to sleep. And that's what happened because Conor A didn't try to grab him and Conor B couldn't fight back because Poirier was just throwing so many punches. So I think the whole ring or cage position was the exact reason why Poirier won. I don't think the ring rust had anything to do with it. I don't think the calf had anything to do with it. I think it was just a fantastic move by Poirier to set him up against that cage at distance. And then I said it on Twitter. It's just after that, it was pure volume. And he just unloaded. What do you guys think? Don't be shy.
Oh, Mike. Yeah. Well,
y'all wanted to cut me off. Now you don't want to talk.
No. Well, I was gonna say that the combinations that Poirier put out, it was repetition, man. Like you said, a karate move, right? A repetition. Those are the same combinations that he was throwing in all those past fights that we saw. A same rep. Body, head. Left hook, right hook, left hook, body. Mixing it up, but it's almost the exact same combo that he just instinctively just started throwing out. And that's when actually
and he doesn't stop.
Yeah, exactly. Those volume punches, those 5, 6 punch combinations. And in one of those, I mean, it even caught, you can even see that Dustin was kind of surprised as well too because he was going for a body shot. Conor McGregor actually ducked down and ate it right on the chin, man, right on the money. Even you can see if you look at the slow replay, he was in his stride. Dustin Poirier was just like boom, boom, body hooks, and then it just got him right as Conor was trying to duck because he was expecting another hook to the head, and it just caught him. And Conor never saw that punch, and it's always the one that you don't see that puts you out, and that's what it was, man. And so I think you're right. It's 100%. Dustin did an incredible job. He's worked that same combo over and over again, and it worked, and it worked beautifully, and it was planned. And he jumped all over Conor when he smelled blood, man, because Conor was stunned right off from missing that stiff jab, So, it's 100%. But before that, it was all Conor, man.
Yeah, Brandy, do you think what I said makes sense?
Yeah, no, man, it does. It does. I co-sign on what you both said. Like say it made it, like I said, Conor was winning. Dustin made a little adjustment, moved, set him up, and then that's when he did his combination.
Like I agree with you. Those leg kicks, if they had gone 3, 4, 5 rounds, Conor would have been done. He would have been dead in the water, unless he finished Dustin before that. But when you get caught up against that cage, I don't care who you are. At that point, I don't care if you're Masvidal. I don't care if you're somebody else at 155, like Chandler or anybody else, Nate Diaz, if you're getting pounded on by Dustin Poirier at distance, you have two choices. Try to grab him, which is you're probably going to get caught with a punch, or try to fight back and hope you stun him. It kind of reminds me, yeah, you watch like the last few like Arlovsky fights, like Andrei Arlovsky, and like he almost tends to like, not the last one because Bozer basically rolled over for him. But before that, like, you know, he tends to go back and forth, right? He gets stunned, the guy he's fighting gets stunned, and they go back and forth, and eventually one of them fall down. That's kind of like, that's the only other option when you get stuck in a position like that. You either fight your way out of it and hope that you stun Dustin while he's throwing punches, and you hope you don't get caught. Otherwise, you're going to sleep. You know, like Dustin says, he goes a little crazy sometimes when he gets in that position, and he doesn't get tired. His stamina is insane.
Yeah.
So, you know, the only good thing that came out of that from McGregor is that his name is going on a check to a really good cause. He's donating $500,000 like he said he would to Dustin's Good Fight Foundation. They're going to build a new gym in Lafayette. They're doing some great things overseas. So, you know, I've never been a huge Dustin Poirier fan as far as in the cage. I have been a fan of his outside of the cage. I've met him once before. Funny enough, I was talking about this last week, Alex, that Fairfax card that you shared with him. That's when I got to meet Dustin, both before and after the fight. Guy wears his emotions on his sleeve. He's a genuinely good person. I don't know how much you got to know him, Alex, but from every indication, the guy's just a stand-up dude.
Yeah.
And so thankfully the money's going to a good cause. We'll talk about what the after effects are for this fight, because coming up next, I'm talking about Michael Chandler versus Dan Hooker. I watched the replay of our talk last week, Brandon, where I sat there and I didn't want to pick Chandler, but I had to. And I was just like, but I don't feel good about it. Well, I feel good now, obviously, hindsight 2020. Chandler finished Hooker pretty quickly. That fight didn't really live up to the hype. Hooker tried to keep him at distance, tried to rotate away from him. Eventually, Chandler stalked him down, finished him pretty quickly. Was that a case of Michael Chandler just being super aggressive, wanting to make a good impact? Or was that just a bad strategy by Dan Hooker? What do you think, Brandon?
To be honest with you, so right. So Dan Hooker had a good strategy, because his strategy was he was moving around. And if you watch that fight, you see Chandler had got frustrated. But then, so because he was moving around, that's when Chandler was like, all right, let me just go forward. But if you watch that fight, Chandler had set Hooker up, because he was just throwing a cross punch just by itself. But then come the end, he threw a cross punch, and then he followed with the hook, and the hook caught Hooker dropped, and then that's when he pounced on him. You know, so I'm saying, so Dan Hooker had a good strategy. My problem is that I felt like that strategy made him too defensive, because he really wasn't throwing anything. He was kind of just moving around, you know, making Chandler move, but I felt like he really wasn't throwing any really punches or kicks to kind of make Chandler think. That's why, to me, the fight was really all Chandler.
Alex, to me, like, it seemed like Dan was doing the opposite of what's kind of made him successful the last few fights. Obviously, he had a loss coming up against Poirier, but other than that, like, he's been pretty much standing in like that Paul Felder fight. He just been standing in the middle, banging with you. And this, he tried to mix it up and do something different. I feel like if he had stand and bang with Michael Chandler instead of letting Michael kind of use his athleticism, which is honestly Michael Chandler's strongest aspect, it would have been a better fight for Hooker. I don't know if it would have turned out differently. What do you think?
No, I think it was stylistically speaking, it was a bad matchup for Hooker. You know, you're right. The standing and banging, when you play with fire, especially with Chandler, you know, coming in with those powerful right hands that he throws. I mean, every highlight reel of him throwing that right hand, he's a shorter guy. I think he fought it with the best that he could, the best style that he could implement towards a guy that's as dangerous as Chandler. So he was doing it well. It's just that with the experience of Michael Chandler and the ability of him to adjust the game plan and adjust to what Hooker was doing was what ultimately brought to the success of getting that knockout for Chandler. So, you know, I think that's really ultimately what it comes down to, is his ability to adjust in the fight and really land that powerful shot.
We're going to talk about some of the other fights and the fallout for them in just a minute, but let's talk about what this kind of means going forward for the 155-pound division. Last week, you heard me, Brandon. I pretty much told you Dana was lying. Like, if his lips are moving, the promoter, he's lying. Khabib never said he was coming back. He never said that if something spectacular happened, he would come back. He gave Dana the courtesy because Dana's putting a lot of money into some of his charitable things that he's doing. Obviously, Dana's promoting his cousin and all his other fighters in his camp. But Dana is the one holding up the division, not Khabib. Khabib retired. You know, I talked to Alex right before the Khabib fight, and he basically told me exactly, I don't want to, pump up Alex Soto's head anymore, but he basically told me how that fight was going to kind of go down with Gaethje, and he was right, that Dagestani wrestling. But there's nothing left for Khabib to prove. He's beaten all the top contenders. He beat Dustin pretty easily the first time. He obviously beat McGregor. He's beaten Gaethje. Michael Chandler's the only new one, but nobody in that top 3 or 4 thinks Chandler even deserves it because he's only fought one UFC fight. They think he needs to prove more. And maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. I mean, he's been fighting forever. So if you kind of go with the old Sergio adage that you can be a champion, you can be a great fighter no matter what promotion you're fighting for and be some of the best in the world, the Patricio Pitbulls, the Demetrius Johnsons, doesn't matter what promotion you are. You're one of the best in the world. Michael Chandler definitely proved it. Now, Khabib, he's done. Let's just write that off right now. If he comes back, it's more of a surprise than anything. He said as much again after the fights that, Dana, I've already beat these guys. I'm on a different level than them. Can somebody like Michael Chandler talk enough trash to get Khabib to come out? Probably not. It didn't really work for Conor. I don't think it's going to work for somebody like Michael Chandler. And Dustin, after the fight in the press conference, repeatedly said, and this is after Michael Chandler already said that, he would love to fight Dustin. They have a lot of respect for each other. They're both good men. They're both good fathers, so on and so forth. And he think they'd have a good 25-minute battle and war. But Dustin basically just pooped all over that. He's like, Michael Chandler hasn't earned it. He just showed up. He fought a guy that I've already beaten. Why would I fight this guy? He seems more interested in a trash-talking fight with Nate Diaz. Dustin seems more interested in fighting Conor for a trilogy fight. He's going around calling himself the uncrowned champion. Mm-hmm. He did actually seem open to the Oliveira fight when it was brought up to him. I think actually that's the fight that I want to see personally. I think Charles Oliveira deserves it. I think we've talked about this in length. Sergio used to bring it up all the time, and we used to, kind of like play devil's advocate, but Charles Oliveira deserves that title. He deserves at least a shot at that title. I personally want to see him and Dustin. I think Gaethje and Chandler would be a great matchup. We talked about it before Chandler fought this week, that was the matchup to make. See Tony Ferguson, fight Tony Ferguson, Conor. Let them kind of fight off and have like an entertaining fight. Who do you think is going to end up fighting for the lightweight title? And do you think Dustin has a point of being the uncrowned champ? What do you think, Brandon?
Yes. The answer to your question is yes, and he should fight, and it should be him and Charles Oliveira. That's it, because Dustin Poirier is ranked number 1 now, and I think Oliveira is ranked number 3.
Yeah.
Like everything that Dustin said at the post-fight press conference makes sense. It's just like, Michael Chandler came in, one fight, beat Dan Hooker, a guy that Poirier just beat last year, and it's just like, how is it that he deserves a title shot when you got somebody like Charles Oliveira, like you said, who's been putting in the work, but he's on a 8-fight winning streak,
8 in a row and all finishes, right? Yeah,
and he's ranked in the in the top 5. He's ranked number 3, so it's like he deserves it more. So that's what it should be. And like you said, man, it should be Gaethje and Chandler. Should be Ferguson and Conor, and Nate Diaz is just hanging out at the beach working on his tan still in Stockton. Yeah.
Before I kick it to you, Alex, I want to point this. I want to put this to sleep right now. There is no way in hell that Dana's going to sign Dustin versus Nate Diaz. They can talk all the trash they want online, but they're just at 2 different levels at this point. Would the fight be entertaining? Sure. But the truth is that Dustin's in a title picture and Nate Diaz is a special attraction. Him and his brother are the constant buzz. They sell tickets. Everybody wants to see the Diaz brothers fight. We talked about this last week, Brandon. But Nate Diaz is a special attraction now when he comes back, whether it's the BMF belt with Masvidal, which, by the way, he lost, or it's the fights with Conor, which, while he did finish Conor the first time, Conor was piecing him up the first couple rounds of that fight too before Conor got tired in deep waters and Nate finally finished him off. And then the second time, Conor had more stamina and he went 5 rounds and just basically picked Nate Diaz apart. I think a fight with Dustin, I think Dustin would put Nate Diaz to sleep. He's not as patient. I appreciate the social media buzz. That's what we do. That's the industry I'm in. We talk about it, but people stop talking about Nate Diaz versus Dustin Poirier. It's never going to happen unless Dustin loses like 2 or 3 fights and then they just want to make some money. What do you think's next for the lightweight picture, Alex?
Well, Charles Oliveira is the new Tony Ferguson. So, you know what I mean? Like, he's
That's
the guy
fair.
that everybody wants to get away from him. Everybody doesn't want to touch that guy right now.
The boogeyman.
If you're in the top 5, they're avoiding Charles Oliveira right now. They want to get because they all want to talk about the championship belt. They all want to fight for the opportunity to get the belt. And I think Dustin Poirier is, the uncrowned champ. I know you said let's get Khabib out of the picture. I disagree. I think he'll be back. I think every athlete, every fighter is addicted to that fight, addicted to the game, addicted to the money. I don't care if you're from Dagestan or if you're from New York or from California or India, wherever you're from, you're addicted. And it's just human instinct, man. That's why Conor, who has $1 billion in the bank account, is throwing his name and his pride up in the cage, with no audience.
So Khabib. You've trained with him. You've done some stuff. We talked about that on the interview show that we did, Conversations with You. You did some training when, like, I guess before Brave was ever officially a thing, and you guys were bringing over fighters and kind of setting up Bahrain MMA. You know how much he stands on his word. You really see him going back on publicly saying something?
Yeah, absolutely. 100%.
I mean, if he had kept it to himself and said, I feel like I'm done, but I'm not going to say anything, that would be different. But he came out and made such a grand stage of everything about, obviously, unfortunately, his father passed away. And then he promised his mom that would be his last fight. You
have to remember that this guy's being managed by Ali, and Ali is he's an incredible manager. And I mean, like, he knows the game. He knows the money game. He knows how to sell fights before they're even made. Like, he's thinking 5 fights ahead of.
But that's not his only cash cow.
No, of course not. No, but he knows how to play him and he knows how to do it. But he's his main guy. And I can tell you right now that this whole orchestration. I mean, I don't know personally because I don't know what's been going on lately with Khabib and his stance and all that. But I can tell you that this is all part of the game, man. To sell tickets. And to get interest going and to have one last opportunity, one last hope to see Khabib fight, against the new crown champion. I think Khabib is just sitting in charge, man. This is just like when Conor McGregor was in charge. When Conor McGregor had the UFC, he had him by the balls, man. He can do whatever he wants, pick whichever fight he wanted. He can come in whenever he wanted to fight. So Khabib is just a little bit more of he's more tempered with it, and he's just sitting back and letting this whole situation unfold and seeing, okay, who's going to be the new champ, which fight's the best one for me, which one's going to sell me the more tickets, and which one's going to be the bigger fight for everybody to see. So I think it's going to take some time. I think I would imagine that within the next 24 months we're going to see Khabib fight.
If he does, I think the only fight is Oliveira. But listening to Khabib talk, I feel like that's the one he hasn't beaten. Like, his thing is that I've beaten all these guys. That's one reason why I don't think Dustin can go around calling himself the uncrowned champ. I think it's a little presumptuous. He just lost to Khabib like 3 fights ago. Conor lost to Khabib. Gaethje lost to Khabib. You lost to the champion. Yeah. Is Dustin the number 1 contender? Hands down, no question, whatever title fight comes, Dustin has to be in it. But I don't think you can call yourself the champion when you just literally lost to the champion in the last, 18 months or however long ago it's been. So,
hey, Mike, I told you last week. I told you, to me, man, the UFC, they wanted Chandler to win. He did win. I think that's the guy that Dana probably wants Khabib to fight. He's an American, so he speaks English, no problem. Like the Bronx's English is good, is better than how it used to be. Yeah. But it's just, to me, man, Chandler's the guy that I think that the UFC would get behind, and they would push him because like
he's pooped on Chandler too.
I know. I'm saying Khabib has, but I'm saying because he probably knew that he was going to make weight. Justin was going to make weight so Chandler didn't have to be there. But I'm just saying, I think Chandler's the guy that the UFC will get behind, and they'll try to put him in the title picture to face Khabib, since Conor lost.
I can see Dana forcing Chandler to fight, or Poirier to fight Chandler, whether he wants to or not. At the end of the day, I don't think Poirier is going to say no. He says he will, but I don't really believe he will. He's never said no to a fight before. I don't think he's going to start now. But I just honestly, I think the fight to make is Oliveira. I think Oliveira has been slept on for too long. I think that performance against Tony Ferguson, and for everybody saying, "Oh, Tony Ferguson isn't Tony Ferguson anymore," Tony Ferguson looked great that fight. Tony Ferguson looked fantastic in shape. He was sharp. Oliveira just looked 1,000 times better. Like we've always said from the beginning of this show, there's levels to this. And Oliveira is great on the ground, and now he's great on his feet. And that is scary. I don't think Dustin wants to see Oliveira, because if he tries to take down Oliveira, that's going to be a short night for Dustin. Dustin's a black belt in jiu-jitsu, but he's not Charles Oliveira on the ground with jiu-jitsu. Dustin's been joking about, like, he wanted to make it Guillotine Island. He kept saying that in the press conference. He's like, I wanted Conor to try to jump on top of me. He doesn't want Oliveira to jump on top of him. I promise you that. So I'll leave that at that. Let's move on to a few other fights, and then I'll let Brandon break down Glory 77. Let's talk about a couple things. Your boy, I always murder his damn name. Muradov and Andrew Sanchez threw out for a war.
Yeah.
And then your girl, Joanne Calderwood, which you called, she looked fantastic against Jessica Eye. I don't even know the one judge that gave Jessica Eye a round. I thought Joanne won 3 rounds. What's next for Joanne Calderwood? She's always been on the edge of a title shot.
It should be the title shot, because she was supposed to fight for the title, but Shevchenko got hurt, so she didn't want to wait. She didn't want to be like a couple of people that always wait around. She fought Maya, and she lost, and that's why Maya had got the title shot. So really, man, Calderwood, she just established herself again, and I just think that she should be next. But like she said, if she said she wants the title. But if Dana didn't want her to fight 15 other girls, she said that she would do that. But I think she should be next, because to me, in that flyweight division, there really isn't anyone else but either besides her, or, I mean, if you really want to give it to Murphy. Andrade, you could. But I just think Calderwood deserves it more because she's been there longer.
Well, I'd also argue, Andrade, yeah, good, but she's changing weights, so she's only really had one fight in that division, and then also
exactly.
Lauren Murphy. Lauren Murphy's been mowing down people too.
You're right. Lauren Murphy has been doing her thing, but I want to say, I think though Calderwood is ranked higher than her. I think that's the only reason why.
Not right now.
I say Calderwood.
Right now, Murphy is number 3 and Calderon is 6.
All right.
So, I mean, we'll see if the rankings get adjusted. It's already Tuesday at this point, so they usually come out on Monday. So they're pretty much already rated. But Lauren Murphy's been sitting there. We were talking, but Tony Ferguson, Lauren Murphy's almost the boogeyman. Nobody wants to fight her either. Alex, what fight kind of stood out to you on the card? Besides, obviously, McGregor Poirier.
Before that one, man, there was these. Gosh, man, I don't have the fight card with me, but there was the preliminary fights were sick, man.
Yeah, I thought Julianna and Pena looked great. I thought Brad Tavares.
Brad Tavares was sick.
He fought on that Fairfax card. That was, I was talking about 6 degrees of separation last week with you, and I got to talk to Brad, and I got to talk to actually the guy you fought, Francisco.
Oh, Rivera.
Yeah, I actually got to talk to him that weekend. I got to talk to Burt Watson that weekend. Cowboy Cerrone and his dad. It's weird how everything's kind of come full circle here now, 9 years later, almost 9 years.
Yeah, it's insane. It's crazy how it works, man.
But Tavares looked good.
Brad Tavares looked amazing. He looked like a completely different fighter, man. I was just like watching it, going, man, like how long has this guy been fighting, man? I'm like, he's got all this stuff coming up, and then bam, man, he just performed. I think that was probably his best performance of his career.
How about that takedown defense?
Yeah.
Like he was floating at one point. Like Carlos Jr. carried him across the ring trying to take him down, and he literally floated on top of him. And you're talking about, well, I mean, both of them, but you're talking about a guy who coming off ACL surgery.
Yep.
I mean, you're not going to bang with Tavares. He sits there and bangs with Francis Ngannou in his free time. You're not going to bang with this guy. He's one of those guys who you think should be a top 5 contender. But once again, we talked about this, like certain fighters like him that tend to lose whenever they get put in that kind of position.
Yeah, it's been hit or miss with him for Brad, but Mike and Brian, thank you guys. I got to take off, man, but I appreciate you guys having me on the show.
Well, Alex, I appreciate you coming on. Make sure you guys check out Alex Soto. He's doing the LUX commentary, LUX MMA on UFC Fight Pass. You can catch him there. He's doing some great Muay Thai stuff with Victory out in San Diego with his boy Manny. So make sure you check all that. Check out the interview I did with him back, I think it was in October or September. October.
Yeah, September. Yeah. I don't know, one of those.
Yeah,
not too long ago.
It was pretty early on. Check out the conversations with Alex Soto. Alex, man, you're more than welcome to ever come back on the show. We may start trying to do this thing live too, so that'd be even more cooler. So check it out. I'll leave some links to all the stuff Alex is working on. And Alex, you have a good one, man.
Hey, you too, guys. Thank you. See you guys later.
Appreciate it.
Hey, man, I just want to say, man, like kudos to you, man, for picking Brad Tavares. Like you said, man, his wrestling defense, man, it was on fire. Like I was really shocked. I was amazed because that's how I thought Carlos Jr. was going to win it, man. He was going to take him down and he was going to tap him out, you know, or at least just dominate him on the ground. But the thing was, he couldn't get him there.
Yeah, no, I thought that his takedown defense was just insane in everything he did. I don't know what's next for Brad Tavares, really, because in that division, there's so many people that he could go up or down against rankings wise. And I don't really know what the fight to make is for him because he's been on the cusp. He's also been on a losing streak. You know, Brad Tavares has been up and down through his whole UFC career, now stretching almost 10 years, I think, maybe 11 years at this point.
What's his, I want to say, what's his ranking? Because he's ranked, right? I know he's ranked.
I don't think he is ranked anymore because he was coming off that long layoff with the injury. This fight was what, at 185?
Yeah, 185.
Brad Tavares is 13. So the only fight that really makes sense for him right now, maybe Shabazian. Obviously, Kevin Holland's moving up the food chain pretty quickly. Weidman and Uriah Hall are already matched up against each other. Yeah. I want to say Derek Brunson's matched up with somebody.
Yeah, Derek Brunson is fighting Kevin Holland.
Yeah.
I was gonna say maybe Tavares. Yeah, I was gonna say that maybe Tavares can maybe fight the winner of Hall and Weidman. Because aren't they ranked 9 and 8?
8 and 11.
So I'm just thinking he maybe get the winner of that.
Yeah, I wonder how far Jack Hermanson falls in the eyes of the promoters because he was moving up really quickly and he's still ranked 6th. But he's him and Gastelum are the only ones I don't really think that are set up with somebody right now.
Yeah, because Hansen just lost to Vittori.
Yeah.
I don't think
Shabazian is matched up with anybody right now either. And they're right next to each other in the rankings. But like I said, Brad Tavares is like a feel-good story. But every time he gets ranked and like up in the rankings and then he loses. So I think Brad's one of the best dudes I've ever met in MMA. I'd love to see that guy move up the food chain. But who knows? Julianna Pena is another one like that, right? Her and Sarah McMahon. Sarah McMahon actually almost finished her in the first round. And then Julianna kind of took control of that fight from rounds in the second round. what do you do with Julianna Pena? She called out Emmanuel Nunez. That's not going to happen because
it should though. It should because it's like
just
you said,
lost to GDR.
Wait, exactly. But tell me, who else is there? Who else is there at 135?
No, I had this conversation on Twitter, and I agree with you. She's run through everybody. There's only 2 names I could think of that she should fight. One, I don't believe she's fought Aspen Ladd yet, and Aspen Ladd's ranked 3rd. That's a name that everybody forgets about. She just kind of quietly just keeps on winning.
Yeah.
And then I think, you got somebody like Caitlin Vieira that people kind of don't want to fight either. But Amanda Nunes is already going through Holly Holm. She's already going through Durandamy. She's already going through, I believe she's already fought Pennington, if I'm not mistaken, as well.
Yeah, she did. She beat Pennington. That was the fight where Pennington's coaches had got a lot of flack because she straight up told them that she didn't want to fight anymore. And they were like, no, keep on going out to the 5th round.
She beat Shlevenko twice, right? She beat the Bullet twice. Whether you think the decisions were whatever, the scorecard says she won twice. Emmanuel Nunez is in a very hard position, right? Because one, I feel like we've talked about this. She wants to raise a family. She'd rather be at home with Nina and raising the adopted child they have. Or not adopted, I'm sorry, the baby that Nina had.
Yep.
And 2, she has nobody left. Like, she's fighting Megan Anderson because there's nobody at 145. I don't even think there's a 145-pound ranking. I think the list is empty.
Exactly.
So
that's my reasoning for why I can see Julianna Pena getting a fight, because it's like, well, Megan Anderson, she didn't run through many people. I think she lost, and then she won a fight, and they were like, okay, you get the next title. So it's like, well, why not do the same in 135? Since I'm saying everybody's already lost, like you said, man. Aspen Ladd is there, but she had lost to Durandamy. That's why Durandamy had got the title shot. And then like I said,
but Pena lost to Durandamy just last fight. Literally the fight before this in September or October, she lost.
Yeah, but the thing is though, but now she's fought. Aspen Ladd hasn't, because I think Aspen Ladd got injured. I think she tore her ACL.
Yeah, she's recovering right now. I mean, that's why she's not fighting, and that's also why Nunez is fighting at 145 to defend that belt. But I don't see how you justify to people like Holly Holm and Durandamy, who I think should fight next. I think they should fight in the contenders fight. That a person that lost to them, well, actually, I don't know about Holm, but she lost to Durandamy.
Holm and Pena didn't fight.
Yeah,
but Durandamy had her title shot already. She took the L. So it's like how can you be upset at that? You already had your title shot. You took the L.
Well, then should Pena have to rematch Durandamy to get a title shot?
Well, it's like one of the things. But then Michael Chandler can come in. He could beat Dan Hooker, and then maybe he could possibly be in a title shot. But nobody's gonna bat an eye at that one though.
I think a lot of people are batting an eye at that one. That's what we were talking about.
I don't know, man. I think we were, but not everybody. Not like everybody else out there.
I want to see Pena win a couple more fights. I mean, I even Nunez threw shade at her. Shots fired, like we tweeted. Like,
yep.
You can't even beat yourself right now. Like she every time she has a chance, she falls down. I've been one of Julianna Pena's biggest fans all the way back to like the tough days. Like, I think she's fantastic. She's very likable. She's very personable, and she's a very skilled fighter. But her hand game is not up there with the likes of Holly Holm, Durandamy, and Amanda Nunez. She's not there striking wise. She can grapple with you, but she's already proven she's not as good of a grappler as some of these top flight fighters, because Durandamy subbed her. A person with no subs subbed her on the ground, which is supposed to be her stronger suit. So she's more of a wrestler than she is a jiu-jitsu player. She's not an extremely strong striker. She's very good, but she's not great. And I just don't see, if she does fight Nunez, what's going to happen? Come on. It's going to be another ride off into the sunset moment for Nunez, closer to her retirement as top of the mountain. That division's not going anywhere until she retires. It reminds me of back when Ronda Rousey was sitting there holding the division hostage because she was just dominating everybody until she got knocked out by Holm and then knocked out by Nunez. But once she left and went on to WWE and everything else, that whole entire division opened up, and all of a sudden you had these great fights again, right? When you have a dominant champion like that, look at 185 now that John Jones is gone. Everybody's lining up for some of these fights. Huh? Oh, 205. I'm sorry,
205, yeah.
205, yeah. Now John Jones is gone. There's so many good fights to make. 185, if Izzy goes up to 205, 185 is now wide open. When you have some of these dominant champions, even though Izzy hasn't been champion for very long, when they move on, when Demetrius Johnson left and Triple C took his title, Henry Cueto took his title, look how many great fights started. Davis and Figueiredo and all these guys started coming out of nowhere. They weren't there because Demetrius was running through them, doing like flying, jumping arm bars and every other thing. So I like Julianna Pena. I think she needs to win a couple more. I think Muradov did a lot on that card to kind of move up. I think Calderon's knocking on the door. She might have to fight one more fight, and then maybe she can get a title shot as well. But like you said, Shlevenko's pretty much run through everybody, so maybe Calderon could be next. They were already lined up once. I wouldn't see why they wouldn't be lined up again. Anything else you want to talk about before we move on?
No, not from that card. I think really we hit everything with the ladies and the whole fight card. Yeah,
sorry for that dragging on, people. Just trying to hit up everything. We don't usually get Alex Soto on, so I wanted to make sure we had a chance to talk about a bunch of stuff. But now I do want to turn over the mic per se to my man Brandon Catino, because Glory 77 is coming up this weekend. There is no UFC, there is no Bellator, but there is Glory. And one guy I'm looking at as an MMA fan looking at the card is Alex Pereira, because I'm looking forward to him getting back in an MMA cage and kicking ass. But he's still got some business to do over in Glory. Tell us about that card.
Hey man, it's a really stacked card. It's this Saturday in the US. You can watch it on Fight TV pay-per-view. I think it's $29.95. It's 3 title fights.
A really good price.
Yeah, it's 3 title fights. It was supposed to be 4, but Rico Verhoeven's opponent got injured, but Rico's still staying in the card. So now the heavyweight champion of Glory is going to be in a 4-man heavyweight tournament. He's actually and the person he's going up against in the tournament first is my man Hedzi Gergis. People might know him as what's her name? He's the husband of Miss Dynamite, who's in Bellator. I don't know why I can't remember her name right now off the top of my head.
The king of women's fights don't know. What do you think I know?
I know. I feel so bad. Like I was so much going on,
hold on. Sorry, Chris. I couldn't help myself.
but Hedzi Gergis and him, they have some bad blood, because I think after the first Badahari fight, Rico was doing a press conference. Hedzi Gergis basically just barged in, was calling Rico out, saying like, "Yo, that fight was, the fight was trash." And he basically said, "F you" to Rico. Rico actually got up and was like, telling him like, "Yo, come right now. I'll beat you up right now," and everything like that. So now they're finally going to fight. So that's going to be a good fight overall. But then, like I said, right, we got the 3 title fights. Like you said, you're looking for your man Alex Pereira, who really fights at 185 middleweight. But he's actually the interim light heavyweight champion for Glory. So he's actually gonna try to become the universal light heavyweight champion against Artem Vahitov. And basically, Vahitov is really a guy who really is kind of known. I want to say he really could be like the pound for pound best kickboxer in the world.
Hold up. How can you pronounce names like Vahitov in kickboxing, but MMA, you're like Artem? Go ahead. I'm gonna let you continue, but I had to have my Kanye West moment on that one. I was like, hold
up. But like you said,
you said it so smoothly too. You're like Vahitov.
So Vahitov is basically, he's really kind of labeled as the pound for pound best kickboxer. But the problem with him is that he always gets injured after every fight. So I think he hasn't really fought. I think they say like over like 340 something days was the last time he's fought. And the thing is like, dude, your next fight is going to be against Alex Pereira, and Alex Pereira has been on a tear. Like everybody's fight has just been knocking people out with his left hook. As you know, right, he just fought for LFA last year. He made his US MMA debut, and he dropped the dude with a left hook. So I mean, this is really going to be a very interesting.
He has the whole world buzzing with that one.
Yeah, and then also too, another title fight that I'm really looking forward to. Another one that has bad blood. That's Cedric Doumbé and Myrtle Grunhart 3. I mean, Cedric Doumbé's been ripping this guy. He has this hashtag called Pray for Myrtle. He even has a skit where he's basically at a church and he's talking to the Father and saying, please, please forgive me for what I'm about to do to him. So I mean, that should be a good fight as well. And then of course we have the ladies fight, the American Tiffany Van Soos. She will be defending her belt against I want to say it's Eileen Pereira, which is Alex Pereira's younger sister. And Alex Pereira's sister, just like her brother, she can bang, she can knock people out, and that's going to be her game plan. But I think Tiffany Van Soos is going to take it because she's just a mover. She has good movement. She has combinations. And then of course, man, they have some fights on the undercard as well. 2 fights, a heavyweight and a lightweight fight. I always got my eyes on the lightweight fight because I'm always looking at people who I can get matched up with, hopefully in the future. But so I'm saying, guys, you got nothing to do on a Saturday afternoon. I think it'll start at like 3:00 because, like I said, it's over in the Netherlands. I'm saying, just watch some Glory, give it a chance. I'm saying, you guys like knockouts, which everybody seems to like knockouts in MMA. Kickboxing has a higher knockout ratio than MMA and boxing. So if you want to see some knockouts, you want to see people going night, watch Glory Kickboxing this Saturday, Glory 77.
I think it's crazy.
Thank me later.
I think it's crazy. Like, I like watching kickboxing. I don't follow it enough to know all the fighters, except for, Cedric Doumbé, he's on this card, Alex Pereira, a few of those guys. But it really is. It's just MMA without the grappling. It's just kicks and punches and knees and strikes. Some of these Glory cards, if you watch them, I remember Tyrone Sprague, and I would love to see, I think he's retired now, but I'd love to see him fight 1 or 2 more fights. Like, he would just destroy people. Like, when he came over, and obviously, he made all that hype when he came over for World Series of Fighting, now PFL. back when he was training with the Black Zillions and everything like that. But when he was doing his Glory stuff, man, he was assassinating dudes. So I love watching it. I don't follow it close enough. I do defer to my man Brandon over here. He's the expert on all things striking, so I do defer to one of Tiger Schulman's best.
Oh wait, just remember, it hit me now. Actually, I said to thank the missus. It's Denise Keholtz. She's a flyweight in Bellator. She is
we just talked about her. Wife. She fought Kate Jackson.
Yep, exactly. So yeah, that's his relation to MMA. In case you guys want.
Oh, that's who you were talking MMA. About. Okay, I follow you now. I didn't really follow who you were talking about before. I just let you go with that one. That's what a good host does when he's not getting cut off by his guests. And both you and Alex ran over me.
Hey, man, that's what happens. Yo, man, you got his hype.
Nah, I love it. I love it. So people at home, a couple things real quick before we let you get out of here. One, right below you, there's comments. Leave one. Me and Brandon love to talk fighting, whether we're on Twitter, whether on YouTube. Doesn't really matter. Leave a comment. We'll get back to you. We promise. We'll read all of them, unless you're a troll, and then we'll just probably hit like and keep moving forward. But that said, leave a comment, man. We want to create an MMA community here. We want to make Art of MMA great. On that note, there's a poll up right now on our Twitter account. Would you like this to come live every week at 1:00 on Tuesdays? We record it anyway. A little more work on my part is fine, because at the end of the day, it's what's good for the people watching at home. So if that's something you're interested in, us coming live, guests like Alex Soto, there's a good chance we have somebody else coming on next week as well. Let us know. We want to know from you. So not just the same old comments from me and Alex and Brandon and his wife and Eric Johnson and all these other people. We want fresh blood. We want all of you guys jumping in the conversation. We want to talk to you. We want to talk fights with you guys. I'm involved in several MMA groups on Facebook. You can always chat with me there. But Art of MMA has always been an MMA family. Fighters first. We're all about the fighters. We're all about the promotions, not just UFC. We're looking forward to Bellator getting going again for the new year. We just got done talking about Glory. It's all about the fights. So make sure you stay tuned. Leave comments. Tell us what you want to see more of. Tell us what you don't like. I had one commenter say that things were boring. He didn't respond to me, but I asked him how we can make it more exciting. Let me know. I want to know. I want to make it better for you guys at home. So, Brandon, any last words?
Hey, man, just like, subscribe. Remember, listen to us on YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcast. find us there, share the word, tell your friends, tell your family. Let's make it a big MMA community.
All right. Well, for Brandon and myself, and for Alex Soto, this is Art of MMA, and we'll see you next week.